My name is Brooke Michael, and I'm one of the RN to BSN advisors here at the University of Michigan Flint. And we're going to talk to you today about the University of Michigan Flint's Early Assurance Program for MSN and DNP. This slideshow presentation is for all students at the University of Michigan Flint in any of our BSN programs, whether it's traditional BSN, accelerated second degree BSN, veterans BSN, or our RN to BSN program. We will talk specifically about those different programs at the University of Michigan Flint and the criteria for early assurance. But we want to start off first talking about what is early assurance. So early assurance is where it basically holds a seat or holds a spot for you in our graduate level programs. So we have 4 different tracks in our DNP with MSN graduate level nurse practitioner program. So the 4 tracks that you can apply for early assurance are our DNP with MSN in adult gero acute care, the DNP with MSN in adult gero primary care, the DNP with MSN in family nurse practitioner, and the DNP with MSN in psychiatric mental health. So let's talk about if you're an RN to BSN student. So again, we're going to go specifically over the requirements for each student that's in our program or is getting ready to start into one of our BSN programs. So this slide is for our RN to BSN students only. So our students that are in our RN to BSN program need to have successfully completed 4 classes before filling out the form for early assurance. These 4 classes must receive a grade of a B+ or better in order to qualify for early assurance. The 4 classes that you must have completed either through transfer or through the University of Michigan Flint are NSC 180, NUR 300, NUR 307, and NUR 369. Those 4 classes, again, you must have a B+ or better to be qualified or considered for early assurance admission to graduate programs. The other thing that RN to BSN students must do is maintain a 3.5 GPA at the University of Michigan Flint. So it doesn't matter what you received in your associate's degree or previous coursework that you may have completed at another university. You only need to make sure you maintain that 3.5 GPA at the University of Michigan Flint. So this slide is for our traditional students. So any of our students that are in our traditional BSN program, you must have, again, maintained a 3.5 GPA at the University of Michigan Flint. So that's every class you've ever taken at the University of Michigan Flint. You need to have an overall or 3.5 or higher GPA. You also need to be in your 4th semester in the BSN program. This would be 1 year before you're ready to graduate with your BSN. You do not want to fill out this form until you are 1 year or less away from graduating with your BSN. But then when you do go to fill out this form, there's a couple of things that you need to know. So you want to either speak to your advisor or make sure you have found out this information through your SIS account before you fill out the form. The first thing you need to know is your cohort number. So make sure you know that before you start to fill out the form. Make sure you know your grade in pathophysiology. And also make sure that you have worked closely with your advisor to find out when you will be ready to start into graduate programs. For any of our graduate programs, early assurance applications, you're going to fill out this form, whether you are RN to BSN traditional, ASD, or veterans. You're going to fill out this form and let them know when you're ready to start into graduate programs. That means you need to know when you will be done with your BSN. So you'll need to work closely with your advisor so that you know, okay, I know I will graduate in May of 22, or I know I'll graduate in December of 22, and so that I will be able to start into graduate programs after that time. So don't pick a semester on these forms that is previous to when you will have graduated with your BSN. Now, for the traditional BSN program, you also need to have your nursing license completed before you can start into your graduate level coursework. So keep that in mind when you're deciding on a start date into graduate programs, when you're filling out this form, that you know that not only you'll have your BSN graduated, but also have that NCLEX or nursing license passed. The form is the same for every single student in the University of Michigan-Flint School of Nursing. It's right there at that go.umflint.edu/School of Nursing Early Assurance Form. That's where it's located for every one of our students. You'll just pick your program and then it'll direct you to the correct questions that are aligned to your program. For our accelerated second degree BSN, ASD BSN, or our veterans BSN, you need to have successfully completed at least 2 semesters at the University of Michigan-Flint in your BSN before filling out the application. And you would need to, again, maintain a 3.5 GPA or better at the University of Michigan-Flint. Again, this does not matter what you transferred in or your previous bachelor's degree, only what you've taken at the University of Michigan-Flint. This would be 1 year again before graduating, and you would need to know again that cohort number, your grade in pathophysiology, and again, making sure you pick the semester in your that you want to start into the DNP with MSN after you have not only graduated with your BSN, but also will have your NCLEX or nursing license passed. There are 2 early assurance deadlines. You can fill this form out at any time throughout the year. So it doesn't matter when you fill it out, as long as you met those criteria for earning to BSN, completed those 4 classes. For the traditional program, your 1 year from graduation. For the accelerated second degree or the veterans BSN, you successfully completed 2 semesters at the university in the School of Nursing, not counting pre-nursing. But you can fill it out at any time, but there are 2 times a year they will allow you to know when you have been admitted. So December 1st and April 15th are the deadlines every year. You would find out about a month after those deadlines whether or not you have your seat held for early admissions into our MSN and DNP programs. The other thing that you need to keep in mind for all students is that you do need to fill out the secondary application. Students that are admitted into the early assurance program still need to fill out the graduate program application, which we'll talk about on the next slide, before the deadlines. So if you're planning on starting in a fall term into graduate programs, then the February 1st or the March 31st, before that fall semester you're ready to start, you need to make sure that everything's turned in. Same for the winter semester. If you're planning on starting in a winter term, make sure that you have everything turned in by August 15th. And so now let's talk about what you need to turn in for the early assurance program. And this is just the information by those other deadlines, not the form for the initial early assurance program. You do need to have your application filled out. There's a link to it on this slideshow. You will also need your resume uploaded. If you have your nursing license, you need a copy of your nursing license sent in. And then if you don't have your nursing license, you will just need to make sure you send it in before classes begin, because again, you cannot start to graduate coursework until you have completed your nursing license. You do need the supplemental application form, and then you'll need to fill out a goal statement. This goal statement has about 5 bullet points down below. You need to make sure you speak to each of those goal statement bullet points in your essay. So there is a rubric that the goal statement is graded on. And that rubric has points associated with each one of those bullet points. So if you do not speak to one of those bullet points, you will miss all of those points. So make sure when you're writing your goal statement that you speak to each of these bullet points. All of this information is also on our graduate program's website, as well as the slideshow presentation that will be emailed to you. The other 2 things you may need if you are an international student, there's a few additional information that you need to send in, and there can be a phone appointment requirement, but not traditionally. Through the early assurance application, there are 2 things that it does eliminate that most students would normally have to turn in. That is your transcripts. You don't obviously need to send your transcripts in because your transcripts are already at the university, and you also do not have to have letters of reference. So typically our applicants for our graduate programs have to send in 3 letters of reference. For our early assurance students, you do not have to send in letters of reference. So it's another benefit to the early assurance program. Now, I want to speak specifically to the adult gero acute care nurse practitioner track only. This is only for the acute care. If you are interested in primary care, family nurse practitioner, or the psychiatric, do not pay any attention to this. This slide is only for acute care nurse practitioner track students. There is some additional work experience and certification requirements that you must have before you can be considered for this track. So you do need 1 year of full-time experience as a registered nurse in a critical care unit. And it's going to describe out what we consider a critical care unit. There are some exceptions to those rules, like if you've been in the ER, but you've had experience with different kinds of equipment. So you can read through that and see and make sure, but you cannot start our program until you've had these experiences. So if you're thinking about the acute care, and you're a traditional veterans or accelerated second degree student and you've had no experience as a nurse yet, then you would want to think about putting the date you want to start to grad programs for another year out from your graduation. Because again, you wouldn't have this experience. If you're an RN to BSN student and you've been working as an ADN nurse and you've had this experience, then of course you can go ahead and fill that application to start immediately into graduate programs if you wanted to. You also do need certification in ACLS and BLS. So please keep that in mind that you do need those certifications for this track only. So let's talk about some common questions that a lot of students have. So can I repeat a course to get a better grade or improve my GPA? Absolutely. So if your GPA has dropped below that 3.5 GPA by quite a bit and you need to raise it up, then we always suggest repeating a class, whatever class you have a low grade in. Let's say you have a C in a class or even a D in a class, then you want to repeat that exact class to raise your GPA. If you just retake a different class that's similar, it will not trump that grade like it would if you retook the exact same class at the same institution. And the other thing is if you needed to retake it as an RN to BSN student, you're in that track and you had to take those 4 classes and you didn't get that B+, then you can always retake those classes to get that better grade. There is a spot on the form to explain why you needed to retake the class. You know, you can explain, you know, whatever life circumstances were going on that potentially caused you to not do well in the class the first time around. What if I need to choose a different start date than the one I picked in my original application? If you do, then your early assurance is revoked. It doesn't mean that you can't get into our DNP with MSN program. It just means you have to go through the traditional process of applying. Your seat is no longer held for you, and you will have to have those letters of reference. So keep that in mind that if you, that's why you want to make sure you know when you want to start. So work closely with your advisor to know when you're going to have all of that criteria met, whether it's experience that you need, if it's for the acute care track, or whether it is having your nursing license and or your BSN completed. Can I take time off in your graduate programs? We do not suggest taking time off in graduate level coursework, and that is because our graduate level curriculum is built upon itself. So, you know, you need the content in this class to be successful in this class. So when you take time off, it can delay your graduation up to a year because that class you need may not be offered again for another full year. So you absolutely can if life comes up, but we do not recommend it if possible, because like I said, it could delay your graduation up to a year. Can RN to BSN students transfer in those pre-admission courses, 300, 307, 369, or 180? Yes, you can. You can absolutely transfer them in as long as the grade was a B+ or better. You can use it for that form. So for example, you can use nursing support course 180. That class transfers in from a couple of different community colleges throughout the state. If you did already complete that class, as long as it was a B+ or better at your community college, then you can absolutely use it to go ahead and fill out this form. Do I need to take the GRE for graduate school? No, you do not need to take the GRE. Do you need to come to Flint? So for our RN to BSN students during the RN to BSN program, no, you do not. For our traditional ASD and veterans BSN programs, of course, yes, you're coming to Flint. That's a face-to-face program in Flint. Now, once you start into either the MSN or the DNP, the coursework is all completed online and your clinicals are completed in your area, but you do need to come to Flint at least 3 to 5 times a year. So you're going to come about once to maybe twice a semester. So keep that in mind that you'll need to be able to get to the Flint campus around 1 time to 2 times a semester. Will you help with clinical placement in the MSN and DNP program? Yes, we have a clinical coordinator that will help you find clinical placement in your area. You will need to take an active role. So you'll work closely with our clinical coordinator to find a clinical placement in your area. You may be asked to make some phone calls or send some emails. So this isn't just a process where you sit back and do nothing, but we absolutely have a clinical coordinator that will help you find those clinical placements. And since I'm required to fill out the graduate program application, is there any reason that I won't get in? No, as long as you maintain that 3.5 GPA at the university and you turn everything in by the deadline. So those things we talked about, that goal statement, your resume, and the application, as long as you get all of that turned in by those deadlines, whether it's a fall start or a winter start, you will not be denied a spot in our MSN and DNP. So those are the only two things you have to do. Maintain that 3.5 after you receive the early assurance acceptance. You only need to maintain that 3.5 GPA and fill out your graduate program application along with turning in those additional information in by the deadlines. How long does it take? So for our MSN and our DNP, there are part-time and full-time. You will pick or apply when you fill out that graduate program application, the secondary application. It's going to say, do you want to be part-time or full-time? And so, you know, when you fill that out, make sure you are aware of your outside obligations, whether it's work or family or anything else that may cause you to not be able to focus on your school. So make sure that you kind of have an idea of whether you want to be part-time or full-time when you fill out your graduate program application. So the MSN part-time takes 2 years, 8 months. And to finish out your DNP part-time takes 3 years and 8 months. For the full-time track, so students that are going full-time, it is 1 year, 8 months to receive your MSN and 2 years, 8 months to receive your DNP. Can I work full time? So as I mentioned before, you want to know what your work life experience is going on, like what's happening in your life other than just school. So we do not ever recommend working full-time and going to school full-time. This is a graduate level nurse practitioner program. Working full-time and going to school full-time will be very, very difficult. Now, we don't ever stop you from doing that, but we highly do not recommend it. So again, as I talked about before, there's not a lot of opportunities to take time off. So you don't want to be working full-time and going to school full-time and then get overwhelmed, need to take time off, and then it delays your graduation. It would have been better from the get-go if you just started at part-time. How many classes do I take each semester in the MSN and DNP programs? For part-time, it's an average of 2 classes, and for full-time, it's an average of 3 to 4 classes. In the future, let's talk about why you should go ahead and finish out the DNP instead of just stopping out at your MSN. So in the future, a lot of the jobs are going to require the DNP. So that's the field is kind of moving towards that DNP right now. So you can always work as a nurse practitioner once you have your nurse practitioner license and schooling, but there may be that the jobs you're wanting are wanting that DNP. And so that's why we highly recommend going out and finishing out the DNP. It's only an additional 15 credits after you finish your MSN. So it's not that much more schooling and it opens up a lot more doors for you. So let's talk about what your next steps are. You want to work with your advisor in your undergraduate program before you fill out that form. And that's because, like I said, so that you can have a better understanding and feeling of when you're going to graduate with your BSN, along with when you'll have your realistically have your nursing license done. And if, again, you're doing the acute care track, when realistically you would have your work experience done. Also knowing what your grade was in pathophysiology if you're a traditional accelerated second degree or veteran student. So to book an appointment with any of your advisors, it's the same website, go.umflint.edu/UM-Flint SON, which stands for School of Nursing, SON Advising. And so then you'll find your program and then it'll help narrow down your advisor. For the traditional BSN, ASD BSN, and veterans BSN, we offer face-to-face phone or virtual appointments. We offer those same things for our BSN students, but we also have appointments in Lansing or Port Huron. for our RN-to-BSN students if you like face-to-face. And then also we have extended time slots for our RN-to-BSN. We have 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. phone and virtual appointments on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So if you need an early morning or a late evening, we have those available to our RN-to-BSN students. So the tuition for graduate programs, not your undergrad, but your graduate tuition right now is at $734 per credit hour. Again, depending on when you start into the DNP, if you're not starting for 2 or 3 years, that tuition could obviously go up, but that's what it is currently. We do offer a nurse faculty loan forgiveness program, which is a very large benefit to our graduate programs. What that is that if you, when you graduate with your nurse practitioner degree, if you will be a dedicated student preceptor at your place of employment, or work as faculty after you're graduated with your nurse practitioner license, you can have up to 85% of your student loans forgiven from your graduate degree. So if you want more information about our nurse faculty loan forgiveness program, you can visit that website. Also has the form to fill out. Obviously, you don't fill it out now. You go fill it out after you're in the program, but you can read more about the details. There's a lot of details on that link. We also have lots of other scholarships opportunities for not only undergrad, but graduate. I recommend visiting those different websites to see the different scholarship opportunities. The bottom one, Blue for You, has the majority of them listed there. So these are your RN-to-BSN contact advisors. You can meet with any of us, whoever has a time slot available for you that's best for you. So I'm Brooke. Again, we have Tiffany, Jennifer, and Stephanie. So whoever has a time slot available, that's who you'll meet with. And then if you are a traditional BSN, ASD BSN, or Veterans BSN, Zach is the accelerated second degree and Veterans BSN advisor. Monica is your traditional BSN advisor. And if you're still taking your pre-nursing classes, then of course, Lauren is your advisor. So we want to thank you so much today for joining us to learn more about the University of Michigan-Flint's Early Assurance program for our MSN and DNP. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to one of us on those last slides, whoever is your main advisor, either through phone, email, or through booking an appointment. Thanks and have a great day.